Hi, 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 hello. This is a little vid. Um, Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. What next? What next? What next? Okay, now we know that Boris prorogued Parliament to give as little time as possible to debate the Brexit situation. Parliament is returning next Tuesday. I believe the Scottish court is examining whether the advice that Boris gave to the Queen was legal or whether it was not. He's going to hear as much advice as possible. So sometime on Tuesday we will hear whether the advice he gave to the Queen to prorogue Parliament, which means it's not a recess. No activity takes place at all in the House of Commons or the House of Lords. That is to prorogue, and this happens usually every year for 2, 3, 4, or 5 days, but never as long as this. So it's obvious that he's used this as what I would call a cunning plan. As Baldrick would say, a cunning plan. It's devious, really. It's to thwart the electorate, because crashing out with no deal, no one really knows what the effect will be. But I've read so much about this on a forum called Quora, where it talks about how things were in Britain before we joined the European Union. We tried many years to join, and we were always refused. President de Gaulle, he always said no. At that time, we were the sick man of Europe, and we had lots of problems. After the Second World War, we had taken a big loan from the United States, which took many years to repay, and things were pretty bad. We were actually known before 74, as when we joined the European Union, when they eventually agreed, as the sick man of Europe. It was quite bad. And the European Union has united the main reason that European Union was formed, so that I mean, in 100 years, Germany's been at war 3 times. Once about 1882, and then 1914, and then 1939. And Churchill was one of the first people to say that this should never happen again, but that we have to somehow form a union whereby it would never be to anyone's advantage to attack another country. So the first thing that happened was that France and Germany agreed to share their coal reserves and steel manufacturing reserves. That's how it first started between France and Germany. And gradually other countries applied to come in, and providing they fulfilled the financial requirements, they were admitted. But a lot of people don't realise that there are about 6 countries who have a customs union with the European Union, but are not full members. So they have no voting rights, but they can trade freely. So that's one possibility, that Britain could have a customs agreement without being a member of the European Union. But that was discussed some months ago, but it seemed to have been forgotten. So I don't think much is going to happen in Parliament on Tuesday. They're going to wait for the result of the Scottish judges' I think on Wednesday, when Hilary Benn was interviewed last night on Newsnight, he said that they wanted to seek another referendum. But I'm not sure if he's being absolutely honest, because he did admit that they had a plan, a very good plan, and I'm sure if this was the plan that they were going to seek for another referendum, this to me is not going to work. Another referendum couldn't solve the situation. It could go the other way, 52% to remain. I mean, and what do you do then? You have another referendum, best of three? No, another referendum is not a good idea. So if on Tuesday the judge says that the advice that Boris gave to the Queen was illegal, then he won't be able to prorogue Parliament, and then the Parliament will sit. They'll have 2 months. There are the party conferences season, which takes up some of the time, but there'll be many more days which they can debate the whole issue. And because I don't think that anyone's going to vote for a no deal. So the main thing that most politicians are trying to stop is to exit with a no deal. What I don't understand is that when Boris was elected by the Conservative MPs, they all knew that he stood for leaving the European Union with no deal. And if it eventually gets back to a vote, if he gets a change in the withdrawal agreement, or a change in the backstop, which I don't think actually the European Union will agree to, I don't think there'll be any significant change, and once again it will be defeated. And the European Union have said they will only grant an extension on 2 conditions. Either that Britain is going to seek another referendum, or there's going to be a general election. Now, a second referendum, I think, is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. But if there's a general election, then the only way that can happen is if there's a vote of no confidence. Now, that could take place next week, or it could take place at a later date. But there are going to be meetings now, twice a week, between the European Union and the representatives of the government in Helsinki, twice a week, to try and come to some agreement. But my own opinion is that there will be a vote of no confidence, and that there will be a general election. Now, Ruth, you know, the leader of the Conservative Party in Scotland, has resigned for professional and personal reasons, but she actually built up the Conservative Party in Scotland when she was in that job for 8 years. And when she first started 8 years ago, they had only 1 Conservative MP. Now they have 13 Conservative MPs. But now that she's resigned, if there was a general election, I think it's quite likely that they would lose quite some of those seats. At the moment, the Tories have only got a majority of 1, because they've got the 10 MPs from the DUP, the Democratic Union Party in Northern Ireland, to support them. But Northern Ireland does not want to leave the European Union. So they're not going to vote with the government. So there's 10 straight away that they've lost. And also, probably some of the Scottish MPs will not vote with the government. So, in my opinion, if there's a vote of no confidence, the government will lose, and a general election will be called. The general election, the Conservatives, in my opinion, will not win the general election, because there has been talk that the parties who represent the fact that we should either seek a better deal, or that we should revoke Article 50, or that we should remain as we are, they're going to work together. So the Greens, the Liberals, and the Change, there's 4 or 5 parties They're probably going to use tactics to not compete against one another. So there's a very good chance that they'll win more seats and that they will hold the balance of power in a hung parliament. Now, when we had the hung parliament in 2010, Nick Clegg had 50 plus MPs. Now I think he's down to only about 10 or 12 because joining the Conservatives in the coalition upset and disappointed a lot of Liberal supporters. He reneged on his promise to get rid of university fees, and although there was actually a vote on whether to adopt the not the proportional representation, but the alternative vote, that was defeated, mainly because I don't think people quite understand what the alternative vote is, where you put your first preference, then your second preference, and your third preference. Very, very complicated system. But most of the world in democratic countries have what they call a PR system, which is proportional representation. For example, if the Greens get 5% of the votes, they would then get 5% of the number of MPs to represent that 5%. And the same with all the other parties. It would be in proportion to the number of people who voted for any particular party. Most countries, like in Finland, where I'm living now, I'm from the UK originally, but I'm living in Finland, and they've had PR, and the Republic of Ireland had PR. Most other countries, most modern democratic countries have a system called PR. This first past the post, it used to produce a clear result, but no longer. Politics has changed. One of the reasons it's changed is because of UKIP, Nigel Farage. And if PR comes about, which I think is a good thing, because parties will have to work together to solve problems instead of being against one another. There won't be you and them, or you're wrong and I'm right. They'll all have to work together. And so I'm foreseeing that there will be a general election in this autumn. It could be before the exit date of the 31st of October, or it might be after the 31st of October. But if it's after, the default deal is that we leave with no deal. So I think before that happens, there will be a vote which John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, is going to allow any motions put by anyone from any party to be heard. And although he's a Conservative, he's a very fair man, and he thinks that what Boris has done is undemocratic and it's really abusing his power. So John Bercow will allow any motion to be put forward and debated. And John Bercow is going to be he'll hold the secret, and he'll be able to say what's going to be done in Parliament. He won't say yes or no, but he'll give everyone the chance to be heard. And my prediction is that it's going to be a very, very stormy time in the next few weeks in Parliament, but that eventually the Conservatives will lose, we'll have a general election, and we'll end up with a coalition of parties, and we'll have a new system of government called PR, proportional representation. Thank you for listening.